Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please be upstanding. Obviously, before I open the meeting, I'd like to invite Zia Madeen to start the prayer, please, before we sit down. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين صدق الله العظيم. Now I'd like to recite an English translation of a prayer. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. O Allah, Lord of all creation, we gather here today seeking your guidance, your blessing and your light. You are the one who knows what is hidden and what is revealed, the turner of hearts, the giver of wisdom, the one who brings people together with purpose. O Allah, place mercy and tranquility in this assembly. Allow our words to be kind, our intentions sincere, and our decisions rooted in justice and compassion. Grant us the humility to listen, the courage to speak the truth, and the patience to work for the good of all. O Allah, you have entrusted each of us with responsibilities. Make us worthy stewards of the roles we hold. Let us act with integrity, honesty, and care. Protect us from arrogance, division, and misunderstanding. Unite our hearts upon what is right and beneficial. O Allah, guide this council with clarity and fairness. Help us to uplift the most vulnerable and build a community of peace and to leave behind a legacy of goodness. And our efforts be a means of healing, cooperation, and harmony. O Allah, surround this town, its residents, and its leaders with safety, stability, and blessings. Grant ease to those facing hardship, hope to those in despair, and strength to those serving others. O Allah, accept our gathering, purify our intentions, and place blessings in every decision made today. You are the most merciful, the most wise. Amin. Thank you.
Thank you, Zia. If you would like to stay, you're most welcome to the meeting. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid council meeting. My name is Councillor Mandy Bra, and I'm the Mayor of the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, and I will be chairing this meeting. The meeting is being both recorded and streamed live on YouTube. I would like remind all attendees, whether here in the room or on the Zoom meeting, taking part in the meeting indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live, and acknowledgement that after the meeting, it will continue to be available in the public domain. Please respect that during the meeting, I may need to take time to discuss procedures with the officers. If any councillor raises a point of order during the meeting, please state immediately the standing order or the rule debate considered to have been infringed. My ruling, however, will be final. We will now move to item 1 on the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, so we have apologies from Councillor Knowles, Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Grove this evening.
Thank you, Your Honour. Are there any other apologies should be noted online? No? No? Okay.
His apologies.
Sorry,
Councillor Majid, I thought he'd sent his apologies.
it's not recorded on here.
Cool,
I'm
sorry.
afraid. Okay,
Yeah, he's not here.
thank you.
Thank you.
Now we come to agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on 23rd of September 2025. Can that be agreed? Do you agree? Yeah, thank you. Right, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. Due to one of my pensions recently being moved, I need to declare a pecuniary interest in item 8, and I will be leaving the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Right. Now we come to agenda item 4, Mayor's communication. These have been circulated as part of the agenda, and the events I had highlighted are on the screen. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, next item on the agenda are public questions. We've had 8 public questions. Members of the public who are submitted questions in advance of the meeting were notified yesterday that the written answers to each questions had been published to on the council website. They are therefore been given opportunity to consider the response and prepare a supplementary question to ask if so desired. A period of 30 minutes has been allocated for these questions. First question is Mark Ashmore. Yes, would you like to ask your question supplementary on there? Thank you. When you're ready.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Right. I'd like to thank you all and Councillor Hill for your answer. Can you also confirm the expected timescale for completing the remedial works at Viscous Way and when the scaffolding will finally come down? And more broadly, across Viscous Way, Hines Meadow and Staffordton Way, we're seeing the same problems: broken lifts, failing lights, damaged fire doors, antisocial behaviour, rough sleeping, and very much so poor security. These sites all need serious investment just to bring them back up to a safe standard. Given the council is under emergency financial support, and as Councillor Gurch Singh has been raising for months, many of these issues stem from historical gaps in budgets and how these assets were handed over by the previous administration. But why aren't we pushing the developers and contractors to contribute to the repair costs instead of leaving residents like myself to pay the bills?
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your question. Councillor Hill, would you like to answer that?
Oops. Sorry, Madam Mayor, finger trouble with the mic. Thank you very much for your supplementary question. In terms of timescales, I'll have to come back to you with that because I don't actually have a definite answer. One of our difficulties there is the original contractor is no longer in business. Otherwise, we could have completed things a lot more quickly. So we're pursuing that, and we're pursuing the insurance claim. So officers are still on that one, but I don't have a definite timescale. The cracks, I assure you, are superficial, and they're only cracks in the cladding. So there is no risk to public safety. In terms of the state of the other car parks, Hines Meadow and Stafferton Way, it is fair to say that the budgets before this administration took over were, shall we politely say, inadequate or just not there. With, if I can address Stafferton Way first, there has been an unfortunate incident with a member of the public in Stafferton Way. And we have also had, Stafferton Way, and we've had vandalism to the lighting circuits. The copper wire was removed. We are putting some money in there. I think it's about £260,000 to repair that and tidy up the car park and make that a better environment for the public. So we've allocated budget there. When it comes to Hines Meadow, we only discussed that this morning, and we will putting money in our budget to actually clean that car park up. In terms of a complete refurbishment, we have money for the lifts, and we'll look at refurbishing further parts of that car park. So we are on it. I think that about answers the question, really. So we're doing as you request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Next question is Mr. Ian Haggart. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Haggart. When you're ready.
Councillor Douglas, thank you for the response, but unfortunately does not answer the question. However, based upon the rate card for the events in parks, a medium-sized commercial event would produce somewhere around £100,000 for the event, and the borough can spend that at their discretion. So can Councillor Douglas confirm who decides how this income is spent and whether residents have any input into that decision? Thank you.
Councillor Douglas, would you like to answer that? Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ian, for the supplementary question. I mean, the short answer is, as you know, the Liberal Democrats really are the party of fun. And Windsor on Ice is amazing fun. It's really hard to say anything negative about what they're doing there. I've done everything I can to help them this year because I know how big an attraction it is for Windsor. I'm getting to your question, don't worry. Nearly 100,000 people visited them last year. It's looking like more than that this year. Looking so far, the signs are looking that it's going to be a further increase. And there's, as you probably know, there's a big effort to broaden the accessibility of the event to very small children and people with disabilities. So where I'm getting at, yeah, we do get some money in. That's true. And I'm sorry I can't disclose exactly how much for commercial sensitivity reasons. But the fun so many people get from it is what we can and we should shout about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Next question is from Mr. Simon Williamson. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Good. Firstly, there are no such places as High End Farm or Quarry. Despite being in Greenbelt, they went long ago and are now a full-on concrete recycling centre and a 3-storey scaffolded depot. Fouls have hundreds of unlimited daily lorry movements across our residential road, and Ardmore continues to use concrete to illegally block Raisbury residents' only protection against flooding. So, A, how can one site be safeguarded for both the minerals and waste plan and the River Thames relief channels? B, how do you see the intensification of waste uses on these sites, given both businesses access them via narrow residential lanes? And C, if there are no plans for commercialisation in residential areas, are you monitoring the increased commercialisation in both Feathers and Ferry Lanes and the National Highways Depot? Finally, when will there be a review of the 2022 adopted Minerals and Waste Plan, and will it provide scope for substantial change? Thank you.
Councillor Bermange, would you like to answer that?
Yes, and thank you very much for your question and supplementaries. I'll try and remember there were several steps to them, but in terms of the intensification, in terms of lorry movements and how they affect the highways, obviously if there is intensification that requires further planning permission, then transport considerations will of course need to be part of that, and modelling will need to be done to ensure that there is no unacceptable harm. Obviously that requires that planning consent is requested and is obtained when it's needed. And I know that we have had enforcement issues in the area, which mean that sometimes that, shall we say, has not necessarily happened in the right order. Thinking about the safeguarding, I will have to get back to you about in terms of the safeguarding for the flood relief scheme and the interaction that has with the minerals and waste plan. The minerals and waste plan itself, as we said, was adopted in 2022. Therefore, the policies technically become out of date in the middle of 2027. I'm part of a sort of sounding board with other members of the East Berkshire, other East Berkshire authorities that are looking at the next steps. Although, to be honest, there's only been one meeting since I took office. So I hope that I can certainly raise the question of what progress is going to be made to make sure we are moving forward with the next plan. But as I said in my first question, actually, the area of Hive End, whilst having these safeguarded aggregate recycling points, is not earmarked for any further industrialisation in terms of further waste, further intensification of waste uses at this point.
Councillor Bermange.
So, okay, I think that's it. But I'll get back to you on the flood point.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the next question is from you as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Williamson, thank you.
This one's a bit shorter. As the council is conducting their budget reviews for the next full year, Hive End strongly urges you to seriously review the lack of funding available for planning enforcement to enable more officers and legal support. East Berks villages have effectively become the Wild West, as many business and property owners abuse the fact that there's minimal planning enforcement due to lack of resources and significant workload. Besides the bitterness this creates, this laissez-faire attitude often seriously undermines residents' main asset, their home. Constituents want to see a back-to-basics approach where planning is vigorously supported. This will reduce widespread pessimism about our declining local environment and rebuild confidence in you, the council. Will you ensure that rather than reducing budget for planning enforcement, you either double it or, if necessary, use a different funding model to ensure compliance? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Councillor Bermange, would you like to answer that again, please?
I certainly will, and thank you again for your question. In an ideal world, I'd love to double the planning enforcement budget. Ultimately, the enforcement is an invaluable part of the planning system. If we expect people to conform to planning, sort of rules about planning applications, etc., we need to have an ability to investigate and enforce where that isn't the case. Unfortunately, the central government see planning enforcement as a discretionary part of our service, whereas obviously the determination of planning applications is something we are statutorily obliged to do. So naturally, those statutory obligations get the first bite of the cherry when it comes to service budgeting. We're certainly looking at the new budget now and what we might be able to do. I can't make any commitments there. I'm fighting to, at the very least, retain the budget we have, and I'm pleased with the work that the enforcement team are doing with limited resources. I think, considering their caseloads are on average almost getting up towards 40 active cases on average, you can see it gives you some context of exactly how hard they're working and how it's a difficult battle they have to fight. So take on board your recommendations, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Next question is from Mr. James Barr. Would you like to ask you? Thank you. The next question is from you as well. Do you have a supplementary? Thank you. Okay. Councillor Hill. Oh, no, sorry, Andrew Hill. Sorry. Do apologize. Do apologize, Mr. Hill. Right, Mr. Andrew Hill. Next question, please.
That one. So it states, do you latch it on? Sorry. Is there a latch for the thing? Sorry. Apologies. On Monday, 6 councillors published a joint statement on devolution with quotes from all council leaders, including you, Councillor Werner. RBWM alone did not publish those documents. In spring this year, you said regional mayors were a bad idea. Now you appear to have reversed and are publicly backing mayoral elections in May 2027. Nowhere do the documents mention the debt sharing elephant in the room or how debts would influence strategic regional investments. Ominously, your statement talks of, quote, 7 billion of additional tax revenues from residents and businesses, without talking about whether a council tax rise of 9% or more will be applied regionally. Given that you've already appeared to have backed the mayor option and therefore presumably know the details, why do you appear to have changed position, and what is going to happen to our debts and taxes in this scenario? Thank you.
Good question. As I've said before, I'm not a fan of these combined authority mayors. I make no bones about it. It's putting too much power in the hands of one person. I like to work in a collaborative way with lots of opinions helping make the right decisions. But sadly, that is the system both Conservative governments and Labour governments like. So we have to live with it. Because if we don't, we no longer have access to money to pay for infrastructure from the government, to pay for social housing, to pay for improved transport. And with a growing population, especially in Maidenhead, we need to have those improvements. So no, there's no immediate financial cost to the borough. But if we do decide not to go with the mayor for Berkshire and Oxfordshire, we need to be aware of the money that we will be losing, money directly from the government. In any case, it's not a decision to go with this. What we're making in the next month or so is not a decision to go with the Thames Valley mayor. It's just a decision to get the facts, to find out what is on offer, so we can make an informed decision later. After all, as I promised when the Lib Dems took control of the council, we want to make evidence-based decisions. So let's find out the information and then make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Mr. Hill, you got a second question to ask?
Yes, I'm struggling with the button. Sorry, apologies. How do you latch it? Oh, sorry, apologies. Thank you. Councillor Bermange, you haven't confirmed what will happen to the golf club on the 1st of January. That's secret number 1. However, you have confirmed tonight that the golf club did not need to leave Maidenhead at all. 2 or more senior officers privately changed the long stop date in Carla's favour and failed to record their reasoning. That's secret number 2. In the 1950s, this council borrowed public money to buy the land for everyone in Maidenhead. The express aim was to ensure it was never developed, but would remain as public open space. You say you have commissioned legal advice from Alex Goodman, KC, but RBWM refused to publish it. That's secret number 3. If Donald Trump can call for the publication of the Epstein files, surely it's time for Adam Bermange to call for his officers to publish the golf club files. Or do they contain secret number 4?
Your 1 minute's up.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hill. Thank you. Councillor Bermange, could you please answer?
Yeah, obviously, as we've said many times, we are committed to as much transparency as we are able to provide. We've gone through obviously we've rehearsed the arguments before in relation to the legal advice around the time that the petition debate was had about getting on towards 18 months ago now. And there was subsequently an FOI, and I know that that was considered under the correct legal basis. What I would say specifically on that point is we know that the Carla outline application is nearing a point where a decision notice is likely to be published. Of course, there's a statutory period where that could be reviewed by judicial review. I think that's 6 weeks. You'll know better than me. And after that period, assuming there is no challenge, but I would say perhaps that might be a sensible time for someone to put in an FOI again, because the public interest test may have changed in a different balance. That's down to the proper officer to determine. That's not for the administration to argue one way or another, but I'm committed to things being done in a transparent way. Ultimately, we've talked about the problems in the past, and those are being addressed to an extent. One thing we're doing right, I wanted to just show you that, I had to look at the Carla agreement again when answering your first question. That's what was being planned in 2018. So this is now, what we have managed to achieve, I think, whilst not going to make everyone happy, is an awful lot better than what was being thought of, up to 2,500 homes, right up to Rushington Copse. So,
Councillor
let's take
Bermange,
things
your
in
time
context.
is up.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
think my time's done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all the residents for your questions and joining the meeting this evening. Now we move to agenda item 6, which is receive any petitions. There are no petitions. Okay. We now come to agenda item 7, which is a report regarding updates to the Constitution, which have been recommended by the Constitution Working Group. Councillor Bermange, would you like to introduce this item? And you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm presenting a set of proposed amendments to our Council's Constitution. The last full review was in 2018, and while updates have been made since then, it's an opportunity tonight to ensure our Constitution remains clear, consistent and fit for purpose. These changes aim to improve transparency, avoid duplication and support efficient governance. They underpin our council plan objective of maintaining strong financial footing and sound decision making. So here are the sort of summary and highlights of what the proposed changes we're bringing tonight are. Firstly, with appeals and licensing. We're proposing to move the appeals on taxi licensing decisions to the Licensing and Public Open Protection Orders Subcommittee to ensure that our procedures are compliant, whilst providing a mechanism for decisions where the officers are recommending refusal of a new or renewed licence, revocation of a licence, or imposition of non-standard conditions to be determined by a committee of elected members. In addition, and to enable policy alignment, delegated authority is also given to the Assistant Director to amend the relevant licensing terms and conditions so that they align with this constitutional change. Then turning to the contract and procedure rules, updating language to align with the Procurement Act 2023 and strengthening commercial and contract management. To give one example, we're reducing the contract value threshold where officers need to consult with the procurement team from £50,000 to £30,000. A small change with whistleblowing policy. We are now putting that well within the terms and references of the Audit and Governance Committee to review on a regular basis. At the moment, it's technically on the list for full council to review, but we realise A, hasn't happened, and B, is probably not the appropriate forum for this, given the suite of other policies that the Audit and Governance Committee currently are responsible for reviewing. Then turning to panel composition in a couple of panels, we're talking about the Rights of Way and Highways Licensing panel and also the Standards Committee. In both cases, they have eight members currently. We think that's a rather strange number to have or an even number is normally quite an oddity, and we're suggesting dropping those down to 7 for better practice and political balance. To be clear, under that composition, the Lib Dem group seats would reduce from 5 to 4. No other seats would be impacted. Budget amendment process. We want to introduce a clear timeline for submitting amendments to ensure transparency and adequate review. Finally, turning to public questions, we made an amendment over a year ago to restrict public questions to members of the public who live, work or study in the borough. We've reviewed how this has been operating and have concluded that the current arrangement is too restricted. Therefore, the proposal is to expand slightly this eligibility criteria to include individuals with a legitimate personal interest in the borough. These amendments are about reinforcing good governance and ensuring our constitution reflects current legislation and best practice. I commend this proposal set out in the recommendation to council and look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Is that seconded? Thank you very much, Councillor Werner. Right, I'll open it to the councillors now. Anybody like to speak on this item? Right. Councillor Wisdom da Costa.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support everything that's been proposed in this updated constitution. Just the one question. When we look at, this is part 9, miscellaneous, we look down the bottom of the table, it talks about updated part 8A for accuracy. Now, this is reflected also in the proposal, in the recommendation. So I just wanted to clarify, what is the bit of part 8A that's reflected for accuracy? What was inaccurate about it?
Very much. Right, Councillor Coe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add some more detail to the taxi licensing element. We have had a situation in Royal Borough for a number of years where our licensing policy was not compliant with the requirements of law, and these amendments basically tidy that up. One of the key issues was that we were operating an internal appeals process, and the legislation only allowed us to have a single decision point within the council. The appeal has to be outside to the magistrates' court. So we have basically streamlined the process. So more matters will go to the licensing panel directly to be determined by members rather than by officers, particularly in the circumstances outlined by Councillor Bermange, where there's going to be a negative impact on the applicant. What will go after that is that if they wish to appeal, they will have to go outside of the council. There's also a matching change to the relevant policy to reflect the change to the constitution in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Anybody else would like to speak on the item? Councillor Douglas.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just want to say I'm really pleased with the amendment to the public questions protocol. I'm really grateful to Adam and all the officers and councillors on the working group for working with me to fine tune this. We obviously don't want spurious questions from people with no connection to the borough, but we have to be open and accountable. And I think this is now the right balance.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was listening to that part that Councillor Douglas was just talking about, and we did discuss this at a meeting, I remember, with Councillor Werner, etc., for those who live, work, and have something to do. This is a personal issue with something to do with the borough. Could this just be if somebody is speaking or working on behalf of an elderly or invalid person in the borough who lives in the borough? Or is there something else that hasn't been said on this? Thank you.
Right. Councillor Carol de Costa. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think a few of us know one of the reasons why we really wanted this particular item put in, with questions being able to be asked outside of the borough. And I think the wording's quite clear. It says legitimate. So legitimate could be somebody who once lived in the borough and no longer does. And what happened during their time of living in the borough means that they wish to ask questions. And I think it's right not to have a free-for-all where we can have anybody from anywhere ask questions. But I think the wording where it says legitimate is something that I could fully support, because it supports one of the campaigns that I've been leading.
Thank you, Councillor de Costa. Right. Anybody else? Can't see anybody else on the screen to speak. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just would like to say I commend these proposals, especially the point regarding procurement. It was one of our manifesto promises that we would tighten up contract management. So in doing this, we are doing that. We're doing what we said we would do. We're addressing internal audit points, and it's all part of our programme to fix the mess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Julian Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think in principle, I'm comfortable with the idea that we need to update and keep our constitution in line with current legislation. But I would urge you to re-look at the wording in some of these documents. I'm not going to go through it here line by line or word by word, but what I've seen is actually quite poorly drafted. And I think if it came to a point where there was a challenge on some of them, we would leave ourselves open to legal challenge, which I don't think is the intent of any change in the constitution. So whilst I think it's a good thing to update these things, I think we need to look more carefully at the drafting of them before they get approved. And I think that should be done very carefully, probably outside of the council meeting and at one of the ONS meetings to make that happen properly. And if we don't do that, I don't think this has been given the attention that it needs. So I think before we approve this, we all need to be very happy with the implications of approving it as it is. And we don't have a choice here. We either say yes or no. And what we are doing is saying yes to some, what I consider to be very poorly drafted changes to some of these documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Jones, Lynn Jones.
Madam Mayor, if you think there is an issue with them, I would have expected when the papers came out that you raised it with our legal officers. I just, bringing it up in a council meeting, if it's that much of an issue, and I would appreciate if, you've obviously looked into this now, if you could forward to the legal officer the areas that you think are an issue. And I'm sure the legal officer can look at it now and give their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can't see anybody else got their hands up? No. Right. Would you like to, the seconder, Councillor Werner, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Mandy. I won't talk for long. Obviously, I commend these constitutional changes to you. I will certainly leave Adam to answer the question on Part 8A, of which I'm sure he's learnt it off by heart. And on the questions to council, I do agree with Carol's summary of the situation. Very well put. Thank you. The nice thing about this is that it's part of that sort of openness we're looking for. And all this has already gone through the Constitutional Working Group, which of course includes a Conservative representative who really gets involved in the constitutional changes and agrees them. So I'd just like to thank all the members of the Constitutional Working Group for their efforts in this. So yeah, I hope you can all support it. And Adam, what's Part 8A?
So Part 8A is the contract procedure rules. The reference in the track change, or the reference in the Part 9D, the track changes, is purely noting should the changes be agreed tonight to those contract procedure rules, that it's noting that they've been changed. So it's a reference to the many track changes which are talking about bringing up to date the legislation about the Procurement Act 2023 and making some other typographical changes and other clarifications, which are all available by track changes in Appendix D, I believe. So turning to a couple of points, I just want to raise the question about legitimate personal interests, and thank everyone who's mentioned that. Pay tribute to not only Councillor Douglas, but Councillor Carol Da Costa and others who have been advocating for this. But on an important point that Councillor Hunt makes, I would say that that ultimately the legitimate personal interest will initially be looked at by the democratic services officers who receive the questions, but if there's any ambiguity, that would always go to the mayor for a ruling. I would expect that being a carer on wanting to ask a question for either a loved one or someone they care for who's unable to ask the question themselves would constitute a legitimate personal interest. Other things are people who have lived in the borough before, as we mentioned. Also, where someone lives just over the boundary and there's something that's going on in the borough which is impacting their lives. Say, for example, some roadworks on the in North Ascot, and that's affecting someone in Bracknell Forest side of North Ascot. Just to give you one kind of example for that, they would have a legitimate personal interest. So I think it is broad enough to work pragmatically to allow the right balance of right scope of people to ask questions. And in fact, it speaks to the other point I wanted to make was, to thank the ongoing work of the Constitutional Working Group. In fact, that particular amendment bounced around all the members of that working group, if I remember rightly, and with different ideas. And I think actually it was in the end Councillor Conneran who came up with the wording. So it really is a collaborative effort how we get there, and I thank everyone who's involved in that. And what I would say to Councillor Sharp, as I just said, you have a colleague on the Constitutional Working Group, and our colleagues are often raising specific points of parts of the Constitution, such as what Councillor Douglas did. If you have specific parts which you feel need clarifying or amending, please do feed that into the Constitution Working Group. I think that is a really good forum for getting these changes made. But we will continue to review and look at the appropriate time for more fundamental overviews sort of more fundamental work on the overall constitution at the appropriate time. But for now, we're making these incremental improvements, and I think that's a good approach. And I'll leave it there. But thank you, everyone, for your contributions.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Now, obviously, the recommendations are set out on the agenda papers and on screen. Can this be agreed anonymously? Okay, thank you. Now, we go to item 8 of the agenda, which is the report regarding the pension fund investment polling, which has been recommended by the Berkshire Pension Fund Committee. Councillor Bond, would you like to introduce the item, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate that some of you may not have had very much involvement at all with the Pension Fund. So there's the Berkshire Pension Fund and there's RBWM. And the links between them are twofold. RBWM is one of the employers in the Berkshire Pension Fund, along with the other unitary councils in the county and a number of other smaller bodies. And RBWM is also the administering authority for the Berkshire Pension Fund. So I want to briefly do two things, just give you a background to this thing pooling, which occurs in the report, and make some general comments. Some 10 years ago or more, the then Chancellor of the Exchequer surveyed the local government pension scheme. He saw over 80 pension funds around the country, each with their own investment portfolio to pay future pensions, and each organising their own investment management. And he decided to change this, so he got them to work together to set up investment pools that would manage the portfolio of several pension funds because he wanted scale. So he thought having bigger investment management organisations would reduce the investment management costs for each fund, and it would also encourage investment in more sophisticated areas such as infrastructure. And infrastructure is very long-term and tends to be suitable for pension funds because they have a very long-term perspective. The Berkshire Pension Fund joined one of the original 8 pools shortly after it started, but it didn't become a shareholder. If you fast forward to this government, they've said that the number of pools needs to be reduced from 8 to 6, and there should be closer alignment of the way pooling works. So there are 2 pools being disbanded, and the pension funds from those pools needs to jump into one of the other pools. And our pool, which is local pensions partnership investments, got 6 new funds as clients. So the pool has grown from looking after 3 pension funds to looking after 9. These new funds are all shareholders in their old pool, the disbanded pools, and they expect to become shareholders in the new pool. So this gives us the opportunity to become a shareholder. In practice, it doesn't make any difference because LPPI have always treated its client pension funds equally. However, it does mean that we will participate in any shareholder decisions, and we will be a fully equal member of the pool with the others. And I think that, to me, is the important point. We will be an equal member of the pool. This will build on our strengths. I'm very pleased to say we have a very good administration team here in the town hall dealing with all aspects of paying pensions. And it's not just me who says this. I attend a number of pension events around the country, and other people have said the same thing to me, that we have a good team here. And during my time, a number of areas such as governance have markedly improved thanks to a lot of good work by everyone involved. So I'd like to commend this to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Is that seconded? Councillor, yep. Yep. Yes, okay, thank you. Now I will open it for debate. Councillor Price, do you like?
It's not quite debate, but I would just like to thank Councillor Bond for such an incredibly clear and concise explanation. It's an exemplar to us all, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Wisdom da Costa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was once Vice Chair of this with Councillor Bond as Chair, and I applaud the work of the Pension Fund, and indeed also the fund managers that we use, which are LPPI. Now, one of the things that sort of strikes me is that LPPI, as they grow, as it takes on board new funds, new pools, new money coming in, new management income, it will make profits, and that sounds great. It sounds like the shareholding will have a return on investment. My only question really is this. Why is it that the pension fund itself is not being the investor? Why is RBWM the investor? Who's going to pay for that investment, given that we're quite short of cash as a council? That's one question.
Thank you, Councillor De Costa. Anybody else? Councillor Julian Sharp, next. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think in principle, this is a good idea. It's the direction of travel, and it certainly should reduce costs for the pension fund. The question that I have is more to do with the investment strategy of although we are a shareholder, actually what happens if the 8 other funds or the 8 other members of the group decide that they want to go one way and we decide that we really should go another way? How does that get resolved? Because at the moment, we've got total choice of what we do and how we do it. And we seem, I think, to be losing that. And that reduces our flexibility to serve our pensioners. And I'm just very concerned that we still have that flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Bermange.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to point out from a governance point of view, I think this is a really strong and important move. Councillor Bond and I had a conversation about this, and actually Berkshire Pension Fund, although it is obviously a collective of many unitary authorities, is a relatively small fund in net asset terms compared to some of the others in the pool. So I think, having this equal shareholding and therefore equal say on resolutions of the company that's administering it is a really good thing. It means we'll be effectively punching above our weight by that measure. So I think that's certainly a good thing. And we take our responsibility as the administering authority for the fund very seriously. We are being a body corporate. We can participate as a shareholder, where I believe potentially a pension fund, which is effectively a trustee arrangement, maybe can't. So maybe you have a better answer to than that, Simon, on specifically on the question of why is it us rather than the pension fund that is sitting as a shareholder. But I think it's to do with legal personality, perhaps. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Councillor Howard, please.
I also sit on this panel. I'll draw one of the councillors' attention to the second to last paragraph in the summary, which says the regulatory capital of the pool company will be funded by the pension fund and be held as a pension fund investment. It is not RBWM money, nor RBWM control. It's a pension fund thing. The two things are separate. However, moving on to the point I'd like to say, as the government is encouraging pension funds to step up local investments, local being quite a woolly term in this situation, the benefits of having control and an equal power within the investment fund is not to be underestimated. We will hopefully be able to channel investment into our local area, to have a full control over how our funds are allocated, and to make sure that we're treated fairly. And if we don't become a shareholder, I'm sure all that will happen, but it just makes sure that we are an equal partner in everything. So I think we should do this.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Hunt, please, next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do think this is quite a good idea, but I do read that councils, to fund the scheme, councils pay in a much higher amount than most private sector employees receive. And Windsor and Maidenhead, for instance, currently contribute up to 32%. Is this going to be across the board if we move?
Can you pause, please? There's a point of order.
Oh, sorry.
It's not a decision. This is just governance around the impact. It's not the funding level. It's not anything like that. It's just putting governance and controls in the right place so we have influence. There is no, this decision is nothing to do with funding. That's a pension fund.
I was questioning if it was going to be equal across all the councils, if all the boroughs, if this went through.
It's nothing.
That's what my question is about.
But it's not about funding.
Thank you. Thank you both.
It's not about funding.
Well, the funding is in politics. Quality of funding. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
It's not about contributions.
Right.
Let you carry on, Councillor Hunt. Would you like to finish what you were about to say?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I was told to leave. No, it's about the equality. Will we be equal with all those we join with? Because as that bit pointed out, each council can contribute more. Will we all be contributing and on the similar foot? You're looking at me. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Julian Teasy, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually think that there's a, what I was about to say is there's a good segue to what's just been said. There's an enormous amount of misunderstanding from certain opposition members, including people who have been on the pension fund. Let's just be to clear a misunderstanding that Councillor Sharp was under the misapprehension. This is not about strategic asset allocation. So just to clarify, this is the benefit of being in a pool. And our pool, by the way, we are currently one of 3 partners, but that is going up. That's going up, I think, to 9, possibly more. The idea is it's about economies of scale. It's about economies of scale, and it's about the expertise that you get from being part of the experts who are investing in this. But we will retain, Berkshire will retain a strategic asset allocation. We can have our own responsible investment policy. So that is not affected by this. This is about pooling. And to me, this is, dare I say it's a no-brainer. This is money that is not coming from RBWM. This is coming from the pension fund. And it is a very, very small cost when you consider the benefit that we will be getting from it.
Thank you, Councillor Julian Teasy. Councillor Sharp, I know you did speak, but you have, obviously you were named and you have 1 minute to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. I don't think there was any misunderstanding. I was simply raising the question of our ability to influence the strategic direction of travel once we are totally pooled with the other organisations. And I think in general, this is a good idea, but I do want to make sure that we do have the ability to maintain our own strategic direction as a pension fund, if that's what we choose to do, rather than having all our assets in with everyone else who may have totally different aims and may have a totally different direction that they want to go in. And I think we just need to be aware of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. I see no other speakers. Would you like to, Councillor Cross, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as Vice Chair of the Berkshire Pension Committee, I'm pleased to second this motion. I'm fully supportive of the Royal Borough becoming a shareholder in the revised structure of the investment pool and delegating authority as outlined in this paper. In addition to the points made by Councillor Bond and to concur with Councillor Howard and Councillor Teasy's points, I would like to emphasise that there are no additional costs to RBWM, as confirmed in paragraph 4.3 of the report. And also partly to answer Councillor Sharp's question and underscore Councillor Bermange's points, I also wish to highlight the clear and important distinction between decisions taken in the capacity of a shareholder that's set out in paragraph 3.2, which includes involvement in the strategic direction of the new company, approval of the annual budget and the appointment of directors and any future shareholders, and the responsibilities of the pension committee, which will continue to hold the pooled investment manager to account as it does today. So given that the model of client pension funds acting as shareholders in their investment pools has operated effectively across the country since the pools were first established, it is imperative that the Berkshire Pension Fund does not become an outlier. We should not be one of the few LGPS funds in England and Wales without a shareholder position in its own pool. And given the discussion tonight, I think it's essential that we have a seat at this table. So for these reasons, I fully support and formally second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Now I'll come to Councillor Bond. Would you like to wrap it up, please?
Thank you. Just to clarify some of the more technical questions that have been asked. As was said, it will be a shareholder investment by the Berkshire Pension Fund, and it's owned by its shareholders, so the value may increase with returned profits or surpluses. So RBWM isn't the shareholder, it's the fund. We were asked, what if other funds want to go a different way? Well, we're already pooled in a pool of 3 funds with 2 others, so that, for example, the investment pool has an equities fund, and we invest in that equities fund. The other companies also invest in the equities fund, but we decide how much to invest. So crucially, what's called the strategic asset allocation is within the control of the pension committee. So we can look at what return we want, we can look at what level of risk we feel comfortable, and then translate that into, well, we should invest so much in equities, certain percentage in equities, certain percentage in bonds and fixed income, infrastructure, and so on. So we make that top level decision. I think the growth from 3 to 9 funds may give us some advantage, because with more funds, I think that the pool may develop some new funds which we could invest in. So we will actually have more choice. As Councillor Cross has said, there's a clear distinction between shareholder decisions, and she read out the list, all very boring sounding stuff, and the investment decisions, which are for a discussion between the pension committee and the pool. So I don't think becoming a shareholder will actually greatly affect things like local investment. The Berkshire Pension Fund is freestanding, so that contributions are calculated for each member of the fund, each employer in the fund. It depends on demographics and so on. It's all done by an actuary, so it depends on things like the age of the workforce, how long they're likely to be retired for, how many are likely to leave before retirement, what inflation is going to be, what investment returns are going to be, and the actuary then arrives at a contribution for each employer in the fund. So we're not pooled with other councils in the county in terms of all putting in the same contribution, because our workforce is different. And we're certainly not pooled with the other pension funds that are in the same pool, the other counties. I think I've answered all the questions. Can't see anybody looking at me as if I've missed that. So pleased to say that it's been commended by some people here, and hope you're able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Da Costa, I know you put your hand up to speak. You already spoken. I'm sorry, can't allow you to speak again. Okay, 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Very, very short. So if you note up here, it says agrees that the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead should become a shareholder in the revised structure, whereas Councillor Bond has just said it's the Berkshire Pension Fund who would be the shareholder in the revised structure. So whilst there is a point further down the page in why this recommendation should be accepted, there's a lack of clarity here.
Would you like to come back, Councillor Bond, and answer that?
I think the answer to that is that As the administering authority, the pension fund accounts are part of our annual report and accounts. If you look at our accounts, you get all the stuff on RBWM, and then that's followed by the pension fund accounts. So I will defer to legal opinion, but I think it's because the accounts are all part of our accounts. But it is the pension fund money. It is a pension fund investment. Happy for the monitoring officer to add to that.
Can I bring in the monitoring officer, please,
Yeah.
Elaine?
So I think you mentioned earlier, Councillor Bond, about different legal personalities, different legal entities. So RBWM, as the administering authority, they would be the shareholder on behalf of the Berkshire Pension Fund.
Thank you, Elaine, for that clarification. Sorry. The recommendations set out are in the agenda papers and on the screen. Can this be agreed anonymously? Thank you, everyone. Now we go on to councillor questions. Councillor Larkham, would you like to ask your question? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman, Madam Mayor. My supplementary. The reason I asked the question is because somewhere there is a waste incinerator facility being planned on this site. I think Raisbury and Datchet and Horton have enough aircraft noise and gravel pits and gravel digging and all these other things without a huge, and it is huge, an enormous waste incinerator, which is why I'm asking whether or not the way for the channel is still in place, because the River Thames scheme and the Datchet to Hythe End flood improvement measures scheme are both.
Sorry, councillor. Okay. Please.
Are both like on hold. But I was given an undertaking today that there will be a report on the River Thames scheme and the Datchet to Hythe End flood improvement measures at the next Regional Flood and Coastal Committee in the middle of January. And I don't have a supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Larkham. You don't have a supplementary, or you have? That's fine. Okay, Councillor Coe, would you like to answer that, please?
Councillor Bermange and I spent a long time discussing who should answer your question, and we weren't quite sure where you would go with your supplementary, and obviously we made the wrong choice. But I was very pleasantly surprised, or no, very pleasant to find out that we have got the routes safeguarded still. And I think Councillor Bermange's earlier answers to a public question probably addressed a lot of what you've raised just then.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Councillor Larkham, your next question, please.
Thank you. I'll just wait for it to appear on the. Yes, Madam Mayor. This is to do with the Raisbury drain, a long-standing problem. And I think that I can prove that now that the Raisbury drain was blocked in this area before 2003. I think I can prove that now. And I'm up for election in 18 months' time. And I've been waiting since before I was elected here, over 6 years ago, for this to be fixed. And it's not fixed. And I cannot see that the problem, the solution that has been suggested is a realistic solution. When people come along, when people and businesses come along and they fill a watercourse, an open watercourse to the brim and build on it and concrete over it, they ought to be held to account and not just allowed to get away with it. This is land drainage infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Larkham. Your time is up, I'm afraid. You had over 1 minute. Thank you. Councillor Coe.
Yes, so unfortunately, I haven't quite got your supplementary. Obviously, this has been a big priority for me. I've been on 2 magical mystery tours with yourself around the Raisbury Drain since we've been elected. Officers have made multiple visits to the route. We have now got enforcement action with regard to the industrial site in Feathers Lane, and we have a proposed plan of action as to how the channel will be reinstated there. And I think we're hoping that will begin in the new year. Officers are now working really hard on the residential area in Feathers Lane that is also blocked. They have recently discovered that there are some manhole covers in the gardens of the properties concerned, and they are currently at a point where they're trying to contact the residents to inspect those. So we may have caught a lucky break and find that there is actually a pipe that's just blocked. But failing that, they will look into a diversion, probably in a culvert for that section.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Councillor Price, your supplementary, please. Thank you.
Thank you. This all sounds most encouraging. Have ticket sales increased year on year? And are you recruiting new local good causes? And do you anticipate that revenue will continue to grow year on year?
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Douglas, would you like to answer that?
Thank you very much, Helen. Yeah, there has been a small increase in 2025, but not a huge increase. The overall trend is really fairly steady since launch. In terms of promotion, the VCS partnership is becoming more established and spreading the word about the lottery to its members. So we're hoping to see a more sustained upward trend in future years. If I might add, a small proportion of the ticket sales goes into an RBWM pot, which is ring-fenced by lottery rules to go back into the community. The process hasn't been decided yet exactly, but we're having discussions about it. So well, that's a bit of extra bonus for the council and for communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Again, Councillor Price, have you got a supplementary?
This is obviously a lifeline to residents who are struggling financially, and to me appears an excellent use of council resources. Do you anticipate demand will carry on increasing? And if so, are you looking to increase the number of financial inclusion officers? And then what is the approximate wait time between an inquiry and a meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Jones, would you like to? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your supplementary, Helen. Demand. It tends to go in peaks and troughs, depending on external factors. For example, DWP did a take-up campaign for pension credit. For the winter fuel allowance was restricted and demand increased. Demand also increases when we go into cold months and the run-up and after Christmas, when people struggle financially. But our stats show the past 2 years, over the year, it's a similar demand in totality. So it is peaks and troughs. Increase officers. We had a growth bid this year, increase in 1 full-time equivalent. And it's felt it's appropriate to monitor how that happens, because obviously being in EFS, the financial constraints, and this is a discretionary service, even though it does absolutely wonderful work, that we need to see how it goes to see whether we need any more. Wait times. Difficult to predict wait times because referrals are responded to within 2 or 3 days. But that could be over the telephone. It could mean that there would be a meeting, but they need to collate information and come in, and we'd help them with forms. For example, I think from my meeting recently, the deadline for forms for DWP is 6 weeks, and we always get within that. and meetings currently being booked for mid-December, so 7 to 10 working days. So it all depends on what's needed and how we can facilitate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, just on time. Right, next question, supplementary is from Councillor Bond, please, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for expressing sympathy with residents' concern about parking in an area with narrow streets. One of these roads is possibly the narrowest adopted road in the borough, so it is an active concern. Residents, I think, will be disappointed in the answer. I will ask if it's possible to improve matters with parking restrictions, though I can't see that's possible. So given that, is the best advice I can give residents is to let the planning and HMO licensing teams know if there are occasions when access for larger vehicles, including fire engines, is impeded by antisocial parking, to see if there is an evidence base for future action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Bermange, would you like to reply to that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Bond, for your supplementary question. I think that would be good advice to keep a log of any potential issues and whether, because as I said in my first answer, part of the requirements to consider an Article 4 direction involves having a robust evidence base in which to present this. Ultimately, Article 4 directions need to be confirmed in consultation with the Secretary of State. So if they're not in general conformance with national policy, they're unlikely to survive that scrutiny. So I understand, obviously residents are going to be disappointed with this, but I equally don't want them going on a wild goose chase over a potential mechanism which simply is not available to them. But you're quite right. There are other mechanisms, whether that is through the council as a traffic authority, where there may be obstructions which we can enforce against, or potentially where there are issues which could speak to the conditions of a HMO license. Again, we are the regulatory authority for HMOs, so we have that licensing power and obligation that we can certainly be called upon as well. In fact, we recently changed some of our rules so that we are able to make quite substantial fixed penalty fines for offences relating to contraventions of HMO licensing conditions. So, yeah, there may be other opportunities or other avenues open to them, but I didn't want them to give them false hope that there was really a real prospect of an Article 4 direction, given the lack of the current evidence base to justify it.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Before all for your questions. Before we move into the next item, would anybody like to go for a comfort break, or shall we stop, adjourn for a little while for a comfort break, or do you want to carry on? Carry on, thank you. Right, next item on the agenda are the motions. There's two motions here. First one is submitted by Councillor Bermange. Would you like to put your motion in, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't think I had said enough this evening, so I thought I'd put in a motion as well. Local street names form part of the local identity that can help create the sense of pride in place. The circumstances in which they are changed forms part of the process that can build or reduce trust in local systems and institutions. In the Royal Borough, the current policy on renaming requires 100% of households and businesses in a street to consent. My awareness of this was of course driven by the significant recent media attention in the names of two streets in Maidenhead Riverside area. However, my initial reaction was that this seemed like an overly burdensome threshold, so I set about investigating the governance arrangements through which this was arrived at. As it turns out, the council are following legislation from 1925. Interestingly, neither unanimous consent or indeed any public consent at all is written into that law. This is purely a local consultation policy. However, I did find that the law we have until now been following was effectively repealed last year when new provisions, section 81 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, came into force. Our existing policy is therefore out of date and needs review. A key difference in this new legal mechanism is the statutory safeguard that before a council considers renaming a street, they must demonstrate the change has sufficient local support. But what does this mean? Well, there was supposed to be secondary legislation to define sufficient local support, but unfortunately, and I use that term loosely, Boris Johnson's administration collapsed before this was enacted, and subsequent governments have not progressed it either. However, from the government consultation at the time, the intention was that this would likely be set at 2/3 of all those eligible to vote in the street in question. Why not just simply a simple majority? Changing names can involve practical costs for residents and businesses in changing their address with financial institutions, on official documents like driving licenses, utility bills, etc. Essentially, the same sort of effort when someone moves home. Therefore, it is important that the desire to make such a change is sufficiently entrenched. It just so happens that there was previously an alternative piece of even older legislation, which some other council areas have been following since 1907. And this contained a requirement to obtain a 2/3 majority of all ratepayers and, from 1992, council taxpayers in a street before a proposed name change could proceed. This threshold, therefore, has a 118-year track record of working well, striking a suitable balance, requiring the active agreement of that proportion, not just simply a supermajority of those who bother to express an opinion, and therefore continues to represent a high bar to achieve. Therefore, the motion I'm proposing acknowledges that the change in law, acknowledges the change in law and seeks to replicate the principles of the 1907 Act as the appropriate threshold to demonstrate sufficient local support. By supporting this motion, Council would not be writing a new policy itself, but would be providing instruction on one specific element of the new street naming policy to be adopted by officers overseeing our street naming and numbering functions. As a final point, I note that this is a function which is discretionary in nature, and as such, the council does have general powers to charge a fee for the service to ensure full cost recovery. There is already a fee in the fees and charges schedule, and to be clear, I'm not proposing that any fees are waived through this process. I commend this motion to full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Is that seconded? Yeah. Councillor Werner? Okay, thank you. Now I will open to debate. Anybody like to speak on this? Councillor Corrinan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we need to think about this in some potential real life scenarios. Imagining a street where a handful of friends get together after a barbecue and decide in their great wisdom that it would be brilliant to rename the road after a TV character, something like Homer Simpson Drive or Mr. Bean Lane. They're amused, they're enthusiastic, and by the next morning they've convinced themselves it's a community-wide vision. Under this majority proposal, if those friends just happen to make up enough of the street, that name and their joke could actually go through. It is the quieter residents who lose out, the people who don't want to get dragged into neighbour politics, the elderly couple who just want a peaceful life, the parents who are too busy getting the kids out of the door to entertain doorstep campaigns. They're the ones who get sidelines because they're not part of the loudest group. Some might say, as mentioned, what about streets named after controversial figures like Prince Andrew? Isn't that why we need to make renaming easier? But that argument doesn't necessarily hold up. Cases like that are extremely rare, and when they do happen, residents usually agree the name needs to be changed. You get a consensus naturally. We don't need to take away everyone's veto for a once in a blue moon situation. You don't rebuild a whole house because of one loose roof tile. And this is exactly why the veto matters. It's not there to block good ideas, it's there to stop bad ones being marched through by enthusiasm alone. It protects the people who don't have time, confidence, or energy to argue with the neighbours who've suddenly decided they're running a referendum. A veto makes sure everyone actually agrees, rather than a pushy few sweeping the rest along with them. If we scrap that protection, we won't just end up with silly names, we'll end up with tension on streets that were previously perfectly happy. People feeling pressured, people feeling talked over, and officers left trying to sort out who counts as active consent and who was simply out when the clipboard came round. So yes, unanimity is a high bar, but that's because changing a street name affects absolutely everyone. It should take more than a well-organised group with a quirky idea to make that happen. For the sake of fairness, for the sake of neighbourly harmony, and to save us from ever debating Mr. Blobby Boulevard, I can't support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cornyn. Councillor Larkham, please. Thank you.
Oh, is it on? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I offer you two examples. One is somebody I know. He didn't change the name of the road. He moved his entrance from one road to another. And it might have been Staines Road originally, and it then became Windsor Road. And that's in Wraysbury. The second example that I offer is 6 new quality developments in a gated development in Datchet in a cul-de-sac. I didn't have a problem with the original name, but when they came to change it, I would have preferred something like Allotments View, which would have been very appropriate in the circumstances. But I don't think they agreed with that and they sorted out something else. I think there needs to be a limit on the size of the development that can come along and change their name. If it's only 6 houses in a cul-de-sac, I do query the proposal. There are names that pop up in these new small developments that have no relationship with the existing road names. They are totally out of place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Larkham. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's completely undemocratic to have the bar at 100% unanimity to change the name of a road. Simple 2/3 majority would suffice, as with other items such as placing double yellow lines or single yellow lines, or having residence parking zones and so on. And I don't think any elected officials ever got 100% of any vote. So I don't agree with this previous legislation the way it was. I've been approached by a very large number of my residents. They wish to change the names of the 2 streets in Riverside, Prince Andrew Road and Prince Andrew Close, for the reasons already mentioned, probably on TV. And I don't think they will be happy when they have to have 100%. And I think they do have 100% unanimity to change that. And if the council are putting roadblocks in their way, they won't be too happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with this in principle. I think, 100% is a very high bar. I'm not sure 2/3 seems also quite low, because you might have a business in that road that's got a lot of, printed material, that they'll have a lot of cost, and if they are against it and everyone else is for it, then, it will cause them a lot of cost and upheaval, and maybe damage their business. So I think we need to consider those sort of things as well. I mean, I appreciate that this has come up because of, the examples that have been raised. And I think the majority of residents there would probably agree to change it anyway. But I think, we need to look at, policies for, detailed and transparent framework for people, like local people who run local businesses. I'm not talking about, from their homes. So, they would have all that upheaval. So I think we need to discover. So without this, I think we're risking consistency and dispute and unnecessary stress for some of those residents. But in principle, I'm in agreement with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Helen Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. In principle, I also agree with this, and I'd like to thank Councillor Carpenter for making the point about the businesses, because that is actually quite important, and that's something that might not have been thought about. we're humans, we don't agree. If we all agreed, we wouldn't be sat here probably. So to have a bar of 100%, I think is a little bit unrealistic. And also given that with parking restrictions and double yellow lines, I think it's over 50%. So it would make sense to try and bring it in line. I mean, I would assume that there is something in there about it being a legitimate reason. And if not, I'm sure that can be put in there. I can't imagine a scenario that's been given tonight. And if there is, I'd love to know what they're drinking because I'd like some. But yeah, in principle, I do agree with this.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Coe.
Obviously, like Councillor Singh, I've had representations about this matter. I just wanted to clarify for maybe members did or didn't understand that the 2/3 would be of all of the identified people. So it wouldn't be 2/3 of those voting, but 2/3 of all those liable to pay council tax or ratepayers. The ratepayers would include businesses, so they would have a voice as well. I don't think in this road there's any businesses that operate as a business. Whether there's any people working from home, I don't know. But I think it does seem too much that there would have to be complete unanimity. And I do think 2/3 of everybody who's entitled, not 2/3 of those actually voting, is a reasonably high bar. There is also going to be a cost. So those people supporting this will also have to work out how they're going to pay for the administrative costs that will be recovered. So I think as well as this threshold, there's also a financial deterrent to maybe frivolous ideas dreamt up at drunken barbecues.
Thank you. Councillor Singh, you got your hand up again. You've already spoken on this motion. I'm sorry, can't speak. Is a point of order? Okay. Sorry, what is? That's not a point of order. I'm sorry, you can't speak. You've spoken once already. Councillor Devon Davies, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For reasons Councillor Kashmir Singh has pointed out, there is an imminent need for this change. I don't want to see RBWM in the news for wrong reasons due to one resident using their veto power. It's much more likely that one resident will get drunk at a barbecue and think it's a great idea to cause a fuss. As for the 66% number, we'll never know what the correct number should be. Maybe it should be 65%, maybe 72%. We're not going to know. But 66%, there is a precedent there. We should go with it and no one can complain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Wisdom da Costa, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Listen, I agree with the broad principles of what's happening here. I mean, the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act talks about the council having the authority, not residents, the council having the authority to change the name. So here we're opening this up and saying, hopefully sometime in the future, if this resolution gets passed, and if we actually bother to follow through and change our own constitution and regulations and licensing and so forth, that will then allow residents to change the name. But what are the safeguards here? How often can we change? Every year? Are there any limits here? We're not really talked about, those sorts of issues. And we talk about costs. Well, what about Google Maps? What about the post office? What about mapping services? What costs we're actually paying here? This could cause a lot of disruption if it's done or not done, if it happens regularly and in a way that's really not monitored or limited or controlled. So really would like to sort of understand how you can add some checks and balances to make sure that this doesn't become a laughingstock.
Thank you, Councillor Wisdom da Costa. Councillor Jones, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I've listened to the debate and I am generally in favour of this. One of the things that has been mentioned is small businesses. People do small businesses from home. So maybe I could encourage you to look at having a time period to allow those small businesses to use whatever printed material they have. So it will change, but on a future date, and let that be a period so that people can get everything in order for that date. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I see no other hands up. Would you like to sum it up? Councillor Werner, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just to go through and answer some of the points that have been made. Thank you for everybody that's supporting it. Really appreciated. It is a super majority with 2/3 having to say yes. So it's not so much of a vote where don't knows or abstentions get ignored. You actually need 2/3 of the people to vote yes. And that's not only residents, that's also businesses. So they get included. That's the ratepayers bit is basically the businesses. Council, I know you must go to very exciting barbecues, but even if you were at one of those barbecues and you came up with a Boaty McBoatface kind of thing or Homer Simpson way, the council still have to agree with the name. And I've got a feeling the post office then have to approve of it as well. And I mean, they might really like the Simpsons, but you know, I think it's unlikely to get through. So businesses are being considered as well because they're included in the 2/3. And at the end of the day, the motion doesn't affect the process that it goes through for changing. It's purely the majority that it needs to go into the process. So I hope that answers most of your points, and Adam will pick up all the points that I haven't covered.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Bermange, would you like to sum it up, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And unfortunately, Councillor Werner stole my line because I was going to describe Councillor Conneran's question as the Roadie McRoadface question. But essentially, as I said in the introduction, this is looking at one element of the overall policy, which is setting the sufficient local, the test to show that you have sufficient local demand or interest in the change. There will be, of course, other elements of the policy, as there already are, which would not change, and they would prevent frivolous, potentially offensive name changes from being able to go through. Ultimately, by getting the required threshold, that just demonstrates the level of support. The ultimate decision is still a discretionary one and would remain with the council as the street naming and numbering authority to actually make the legal orders to make it happen. So hopefully that allays some of the worries about that sort of thing. I think, there was a question about whether one person should be able to veto it, as is essentially the case now. I believe in making the order, there will still be a legal mechanism where an order can be challenged in the court if someone is so passionate and has such a good argument that they believe they can overcome that sort of super majority of desire to make the change. So it won't be the end of the avenue. And also, of course, there's always potential for judicial review if we, as a council, not followed the proper process. I think Councillor Conneran, you also talked about the idea of not being around when the clipboard comes out. I mean, I've had good conversations with the highways team. They, generally comfortable with the proposal, but what I would say is that they are keen to be the ones that actually administer any, for want of a better word, referendum, because so it won't be a matter of being like the ward councillor with your clipboard trying to drum up enough support, as I know sometimes we might have to do with yellow lines and things like that. There's actually a desire from the officers to administer this in the proper way, using proper data to ensure that everyone is given an adequate opportunity to respond. I like Councillor Larkham's novel plan of simply moving your drive around if you don't like the name of the road. I'm trying to think what's on the other side. I think there's a lot of danger from overflying kites, if I remember when I was last in that particular street. So I don't know if I'd want to be going through the back gardens to exit my house necessarily. I agree with both Councillor Kashmir Singh and Councillor Coe as the ward councillors about removing unnecessary roadblocks to a genuine and entrenched desire to make a change. I think that is absolutely correct. Yeah, as far as I know, there are no businesses actually paying non-domestic rates in those particular streets. But as I said at the start, this is not a debate about any streets in particular. And we do need to think, as Councillor Jones said, about the particular impact on businesses. And I do like her suggestion about sufficient time. So hopefully officers have heard that as well and would incorporate that into any policy as an additional point if it's not already there. Councillor Carpenter questions whether maybe 2/3 is too low. As Councillor Werner said it and reiterated it, this is 2/3 of all eligible votes, not just 2/3 of those who turn up. So I do believe that is a significantly entrenched level. Finally, just going back to the sort of checks and balances, and Councillor Wisdom da Costa said, I believe, there are other mechanisms that, Royal Mail do get a say. There's particular circumstances where things can be rejected, and I'm sure that the street naming team would advise so that they don't go forward with something which is ultimately going to lead to a rejection, because that would be a waste of everyone's time and money. Even things like having more than 30 characters, I think, in a road name is frowned upon, if not rejected outright. And changing things to names with royals, although I don't know if that is necessarily what they're thinking here, that would be also require the what's it called? I forget the name of the commission. The Lord Chamberlain. The Lord Chamberlain's office need to agree to anything like that. So even changing from the current names to, say, Prince Road, that would probably require additional consents as well. Anyway, I've hopefully covered all the points and laid some of the potential concerns, and I'm happy to commend this.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange, just on time. Right. Obviously, this has been debated, so now you can see it on your screens, whether it's be agreed anonymously or if not, we'll go to vote. 5 people? Is it 5 people? 5 people? 5 councillors, thank you. So we'll go into vote, please. Thank you. Oren, could you organise that, please? Thank you. Right, is everyone happy with their votes? Could we have one meeting, please? Thank you. Right, is everyone happy with their vote? Yeah, thank you. So there's 31 for, 4 against, and 2 abstentions. Thank you. The motion is carried. Okay. Okay, okay. Okay, the motion's passed now, so I think the officer is asking for a comfort break. If we can have comfort break for 5 minutes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Right, we are now on to our second motion. That's by Councillor Bond. Would you like to introduce your motion, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not a pet owner, so why am I bringing this motion? I can do no better than to quote the resident who got me involved. Currently sitting with music on full blast and my dog hiding and hyperventilating under a blanket. We've tried everything: drugs, thunder jackets, deafeningly loud music, but his heart rate is currently 150 BPM. At what rate will his heart just give up? So some dogs are severely affected. Obviously not all dogs. It can also affect some cats. And in rural areas, some horses may bolt in terror and injure themselves. This is absolutely not about saying anyone mustn't have fun. I was talking to someone who recently landed at Heathrow, and he said how beautiful the country looked from above, a sea of light and colour. But when one hears about what loud bangs do to some animals and people, it does make one think. Fireworks with a lower decibel limit are simply kinder to others without reducing anyone's enjoyment. As the preamble to the motion says, we can all choose quieter fireworks and encourage others to do the same. Public displays are invariably good, and because they are advertised, an owner of a pet that is severely affected can take precautions. The Dogs Trust has some good advice, or maybe the owner can arrange for a doggy sleepover, if that's a thing nowadays. A petition to Parliament along the same lines is currently still open. And I chose the subject for the motion of reducing the decibel limit because I think there is a chance of it succeeding. There are people around the country who would like the same thing. I did notice the government has given an initial response to the petition, and there's something called the Petitions Committee, which looked at the government response, and more or less it said, must try harder. So do have fun, especially at this time of year, but think of animals and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Is your motion seconded? Aaron Davies, thank you. Would you like to speak now, or do you want to reserve your right? Thank you. Now I will open it to debate. Councillor Wisdom da Costa, please. Thank you.
I fully understand Councillor Bond's motion and fully celebrate it or agree with it. It's not just animals who suffer. And yeah, we love fireworks. You know, who remember the 5th of November? We all grew up on that. We won't talk about Penny for the Guy, but you know what it's like. But it's not just animals. It's also people who are trying to sleep. My mother's, I know somebody, let's put it that way, who is dying of cancer. And they're in their latter stages, and fireworks going off at all times of the day and night are deeply, deeply distressing, let alone for people who have to work night shifts, children who can't sleep, people with neurodivergence. There are lots of reasons to contain the periods when we can have unbridled fun. And I agree with this. Limiting it to 97 decibels, how do we do that? I don't know. Is that about making sure that we have licenses for anything that goes over a certain period of time? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how work through this is, but I would support this. And I would ask the team, perhaps Mr. Coe, Councillor Coe, sort of lead member Coe, whether or not we can include firework displays above a certain size. Can it be included in and I mean family displays with huge amounts of fireworks? Can we include them as licensed events?
Thank you, Councillor da Costa. Councillor Larkham, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not complaining about displays. I am complaining about 11 o'clock at night, and these enormous mortars that shake the house without any notice at all, and all the rest of it that goes with it, from people who can do it but do not care about the effect on others. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Larkham. Councillor Helen Price, please. Thank you.
There's legislation that says when fireworks should stop at night, and there are different times for religious festivals and traditional festivals. And these are being ignored by many people, and I don't see the police enforcing the times and the legislation that's already there. So I would ask if the police could be urged to actually enforce the current legislation, and that would be a starting point. I've tried to take it up and I don't think I got anywhere with them. So I would like it expanded, but I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Carpenter, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yeah, I do think fireworks have got louder in recent years. Pets and people have become more anxious because of this. I think quieter fireworks may help, but the issue I hear most from residents is timing, which Councillor Larkham and Councillor Price have just mentioned. In Dedworth this year, fireworks were going off at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, I think midnight on New Year's Eve is probably understandable. People sort of expect that, but a random Wednesday in November at 1 a.m, you know, just isn't acceptable. So, you know, I think while I support promoting responsible use, I think we need to look at the wider issues of enforcement, also online sales and illegal imports, because that's where a lot of the louder ones are coming from, not from the organised displays, just people who have bought them by dubious means, you know, and they're letting them off in their garden. So I will support the motion, but I do think that, you know, we need stronger expectations around timing, and effective enforcement would make this immediate difference for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Coe, please.
Yes, thank you. So within the UK, fireworks are categorised in 4 categories. The lowest category is things like party poppers and Christmas crackers, indoor use only, and those can be sold to 16-year-olds. The next 2 categories, F2 and F3, are available to ordinary residents at 18. F2 being for confined outdoor spaces and F3 for larger outdoor spaces. And those are all fireworks that anybody could buy. And then F4, which is only available to professionals. So I would like to ask Councillor, when he writes the letter, maybe he could make a request that categories F2 and F3 have a noise limit imposed on them, so they can't be louder than a certain figure. I think it's 90 decibels. The figure I've heard is the sort of threshold. Timing. So generally fireworks only allowed between 11 p.m, not allowed between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. The exceptions are bonfire night, midnight, New Year's Eve, Diwali and Chinese New Year, 1 a.m. So I do think one of the things for people with pets and PTSD is predictability, because if they know when this is going to happen, they can make arrangements in a lot of cases to put the animal in a better place, or to calm it, or to put themselves in a better place. So I think I'm in agreement with everyone talking about, you know, we need to actually be a bit stricter on enforcement. Councillor Costa, I don't know about your point, but I will ask.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Councillor Carol de Costa, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a pet owner of a dog that was absolutely terrified of fireworks, and imagine how I felt when I came home from a late shift at Wexham Park Hospital to find my animal absolutely terrified inside the tumble dryer, trying to seek refuge. It was horrible. I'm also come from a service family. I've lived among service personnel most of my life. We lived in Northern Ireland where fireworks were banned. We never missed them. They have no place where service personnel will hear a loud bang and look for cover. And we do have a high military residency within Windsor. This year, we had fireworks going off for 10 days in a row, and they were going off way, way later than 1 o'clock. They were going off until 2:30 in Dedworth. And if you look at what the law says about fireworks, it states quite clearly that they must not be set off between 11 and 7 a.m. as Councillor Coe has said. And it says bonfire night, 1 night till midnight, New Year's Eve, 1 night till 1 o'clock, Diwali, 1 night till 1 o'clock, Chinese New Year, 1 night till 1 o'clock. So in total, we should only be looking at 5 nights of fireworks. And if we could include that in your letter, that we restrict our fireworks to these days and that we get appropriate enforcement so that people are not left terrified and kept awake at night and babies being woken up and people having to go to work early the next day. I really would appreciate you adding those things into your letter. Thank you.
Councillor Carol de Costa. Councillor Howard, please. Thank
I think the issue is about predictability. And I hear about the issue about class 1, 2 and 3, but also professional displays are being done on private land and people having parties where there's substantial fireworks going off. I think is that we're never going to make everybody happy. But I think being able to communicate that things are happening to a reasonable area around the event is something we would expect professional displays to do, even if they're held on private land. When I've approached the licensing team in RBWM in the past about these displays, I've had the basic feedback that there's nothing that we can do. I was unaware it could be enforced by the police. I'm not sure about that, but I would think that we do need to put some more information out in the public domain about what can and cannot be done, as well as setting some limit on the size and scale of these fireworks.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I too see there are 3 issues here. There's the loudness, the timing and the spread outness, if I can put it like that, and the unpredictability of when, when these private sort of parties or displays are happening. So I'd like to add my voice to ask the leader to include in his letter, as well as the motion's reference to the maximum noise level, a request to strengthen the enforcement around the timing, past the either 11, 12 or 1 a.m. deadlines. And basically so that it is predictable and it can be managed better. But I mean, overall, I would certainly really look to encourage public displays and discourage private, however we can do that and enforce against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Connery, please.
I like the intention behind the motion for sure. I think my main concern is that if people are told and it becomes embedded that you can't have anything higher than 90 decibels, will this potentially increase people buying them illegally, which actually could make the problem worse? If we're not already enforcing all the things that we should be enforcing, we're just adding another thing to the list that people potentially just go, well, more people go ahead and find the highest, loudest ones they can get instead. And I think Councillor Coe is exactly right, saying people need predictability. So for me, the bigger issue is about enforcing what is currently there. And I feel that I really, really care about this motion, but I don't feel that it's delving into what I feel needs to be delving into to make it better. I think there's a risk with this motion that actually it could make it worse, but that's not against the motion in saying it's a bad thing. The intention is absolutely right. I'm just not sure it's quite there yet.
Thank you, Councillor Corrin. Councillor Waters, please. Thank you.
In a rather jocular manner, I only wish we had a Guy Fawkes living today, particularly with the people we got in Parliament.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Helen Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to remember that we as a council are limited as to what we can do because the legislation lies with central government. Now, I love fireworks, I'm not going to lie, and I go to public displays. Even though I love fireworks, I would be quite happy to have them banned privately and just stick to public displays because a firework is a lethal weapon. And regardless of the fact that, you know, people suffer from PTSD and animals potentially, and I've seen it, have, you know, horrific reactions to these things, I don't think they should be in the public hands full stop, and that's just my opinion. I would like to suggest a couple of amendments to point 1 and point 2 in the motion. And the reason I haven't given you a heads up is because I hadn't actually fully thought about it tonight. Fireworks it's a hot potato. It's very emotive for a lot of people, and it takes me a while to process something like this, especially if it's something that I personally enjoy. I do think RBWM communication channels need to be a bit better. The advertiser do a full spread of all the local displays. We as ward councillors know when the annual displays are in our ward. We have Firefest in our ward. It's in its 2nd year. And the organisers are very good at contacting us. We have the timetable ahead of time. We know the date, we know when they're going to go off. They mail shoot the local roads and we make sure to push out the information as well. So I would urge ward councillors, if you have, you know, displays in your ward, to maybe approach the organisers and do that as well. But I do agree that RBWM could do more. In the letter to central government, I would like the categories included in that. I don't think any member of the public has any, you know, need to be having a 400-shot cake going off in their back garden. And I think that's the problem, is that the fireworks that are available are too big, they're too loud for the space that they're being set off in. And I would also like it added in there if we could maybe mention something about police enforcement, because it is the police's job. And I think all of us have probably at some point had issues trying to get police to, you know, places where fireworks have been going off at times they shouldn't have been going off. And it is a real problem. And I don't think there's going to be an easy solution. I think this is something that's going to take quite a while to sort out. But I think we need to be clear for us and our residents in what the actual problems are and what we want government to consider to get the best result, so that, you know, we're covering all our bases and we're being very clear that it, you know, we're not saying ban fireworks, we're not saying they shouldn't be used, we're saying they need to be used responsibly, they need to be used at, you know, at times that are legal to use them, and preferably at events that are licensed. Now, there's a difference between a professional display that's licensed and a professional fireworks company that's going onto private land and just doing a display in a back garden or in a field. So I think maybe the wording could be better. I'd like you to consider what I've said, but in general, I do agree with this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. I'll give you a minute.
Yeah, just to say that we don't need to do an amendment for me to add something into the letter. Happy to add in those 2 suggestions.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Basketball, please.
I think this is broadly a decent and necessary motion. A resident of mine rang to tell me a large rocket had smashed through the back window of his car and nestled on his back seat. Although he was gaining redress through his insurance, I think this example highlights the need for greater consideration in general. Education and sharing information is a key thing here, and I agree mostly with what other people have said. I think it's trying to enforce it is going to be the key, but also sharing information widely so everybody knows what's going on in advance of some of these displays.
Thank you, Councillor Basketball. Okay, Councillor Shaw, please. Thank you.
I'd like to express my support for the motion.
I think everyone who's owned a pet around bonfire night has experienced the fear our pets feel. I think my brother who lives in Edinburgh would slaughter me if he knew that I'd voted against something, considering this has been in the public zeitgeist since, what, a year and 5 days ago. Roxy the red panda died in Edinburgh Zoo after choking on their vomit due to the fireworks going on outside without warning. We have 2 zoos in the borough. The RSPCA are clearly against fireworks. The introduction of removal of high decibel fireworks is something that only central government can do, and by targeting it in a way, they'd be able to target it against manufacturers to remove the availability rather than it just being a licensing or police matter. Effectively, there's a lot of things that we need central government to do. So I think we should be, getting involved and pressing this as various other groups all around the country are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Del Campo, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor, oh yes, thank you. Thank you for turning that off. Yeah, thank you. Carry on, please.
Thank you. I'll keep it short. Unlike Councillor Bond, I am a pet owner. Maybe I should have declared that as an interest. I did actually lose a cat after somebody set off an extremely loud firework near our garden at the beginning of October. And it wasn't, there wasn't any other event like Diwali or anything like that going on. It was just one single firework next to my house. And it was devastating for my family, absolutely devastating. So I fully support this motion. I would say to those who are concerned that it might be counterproductive, it is a very mild motion at this stage. And, you know, we've had discussions about this. It is really, you know, it's a gentle motion highlighting the impact of fireworks and writing to government. I don't see any sort of negatives about this, about supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lincampo. Councillor Singh, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm fully supportive of the motion by Councillor Bond and a lot of the sentiment by other councillors, especially Councillor Carol da Costa. If we can somehow enforce the legislation we already have of the fireworks going off beyond 11 o'clock, encouraging the police to stamp down on that and keep the fireworks for the 5 days, as already mentioned, I think that would go a long way towards that, rather than continuously in some areas way past 2, 3 o'clock in the morning for days on end. And some of these really extremely loud fireworks going off without warning from people's gardens and so on are extremely distressing to people and their pets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Gosling, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I totally support this motion. I'm not a lover of fireworks, and it saddens me that a child was attacked by a pet dog due to the noise and subsequently died tragically, and only recently. I'm totally in favour of restricting the noise and welcome anything that will reduce this. However, it's extremely hard to enforce. More social media to raise awareness of these issues, of the danger from the government as well as all our councils. And I agree with Councillor Baskerville that we do need to give notice of events to allow people to prepare in advance. And I agree fireworks should have restrictions on sales. Let's hope our government passes a law to address this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Gosling. Right, there's are not any more speakers. Councillor Davies, Karen Davies. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I've listened to the comments made by the members and would like to thank everyone for their thoughtful and constructive suggestions. The current maximum noise level for consumer fireworks, which are the ones that any of us can buy and use in our back gardens, say, is 120 decibels. And just for comparison purposes, other sounds that measure 120 decibels include pneumatic drills, aircraft on the ramp at takeoff, police sirens and gunshots. And I think you can have a really nice fireworks display at home without that level of noise. Having owned 5 lovely rescue dogs over the last 20 years, I've long been aware of how distressing noisy fireworks can be for domestic animals. Every year we hear the most awful stories about domestic pets, about horses that have been killed, by fireworks, maybe directed by stress or by panicking and bolting. And that's even before some of the awful examples we've heard described this evening, the wider consequences. We last discussed this topic in council 6 years ago, and since then we've heard these stories, we've continued to hear these stories every year. And I think public opinion is really getting increasingly behind moderating the volume of fireworks sold to individuals and for greater controls over the periods in which they can be set off. There's a lot of it. We've had a lot of discussion on this motion. We've had a lot of discussion on this motion sort of before putting it in, because there are so many issues. But what we decided to do was to keep it really simple and focus on actions that we as an authority can take sort of now. And Councillor Bond and I've already had an initial meeting with comms officers, and they're really supportive of increasing the amount and the range of communication going out on this topic. Both, for instance, advising residents on steps they can take to keep animals safe, and also publicising fireworks displays and encouraging people to go to organised displays, and encouraging people to be considerate with the, and reminding them the time that they, should be letting them off. So obviously that's a step that we can take, I believe, all immediately in the run up to Christmas and New Year, which is the next sort of period when we tend to get a lot of fireworks being let off. There are growing calls, there's in terms of petitions to government, and thank Councillor Werner for agreeing to write to central government to add our support to those calls. And I just really hope that all members can support these very moderate measures as a first step towards sort of getting in the right direction, and towards us doing our bit to avoid more heartrending stories over the next 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Bond, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. I'll just pick up on a few points. I think it's been said that the reason why this motion is achievable if the government makes the change is that it would reduce the noise limit on fireworks that can be sold for private displays from 120 to 90 decibels. So that's why that's a really positive point. I think enforcement of the time limit is in practice quite difficult. The police, for example, at that time of night have lots of priorities. There's the nighttime economy. There's looking for people who might be wandering around along the road, trying car door handles. So that isn't an easy thing. Although, and of course, you've got to find where the firework noise is coming from. Those things aren't make it difficult. I think Councillor Conneran made a point that I pricked up my ears at. She said it might encourage people to try and find fireworks that did make a big noise if that's what they wanted. I suppose one way of doing that, as she hinted at, would be to buy sort of under-the-counter fireworks. But that seems a daft thing for anybody to do, especially if they've got children. You don't know who's made those fireworks if they're not, properly made and checked. Really wouldn't be advisable. But the other thing is, the Category 4 fireworks can be sold to professionals. And I just wonder if sometimes there might be weaknesses by which ordinary individuals can buy those more powerful fireworks. And that might be why some people think that the noise from fireworks has increased in recent years. I think that would be a matter for trading standards to do some mystery shopping, because it's not a good idea to buy fireworks that should only be used by a professional for private use. So just to say thank you very much for all the myriad contributions that you've all made.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. All right, the motion is obviously set out on the screen. And can this be agreed anonymously, or is it going to vote? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda, 11, is relating to change to the capital programme. Councillor Bermange, would you like to introduce the item, please? Thank you.
The Mayor, this paper is a fairly straightforward one. It's to create 2 new capital budgets for the current financial year. Because it relates to the current financial year, this is a function that can only be performed by full council. The 2 budgets relate to 0.84 million total for works to the town hall to relocate services from Reform Road. Also, that's the reason I'm presenting this. There's also kind of shoehorned into my report as a second budget that we discovered is required, which is a 0.551 million bus service improvement plan projects fund, which is fully funded by Department for Transport grant, but can't be spent unless we appropriate the funds into a relevant capital code. The purpose of the town hall works is to convert parts of the Desborough Suite meeting rooms to accommodate relocation of one of the services at Reform Road, to enable that sale of Reform Road to go through and secure the significant capital receipt that was agreed upon at Cabinet earlier this year. It's important to note that the requested budget is based on a benchmark estimate plus a sizable contingency, and the final costs, once a competitive tender process have been conducted, are likely to be considerably lower. Turning to the purpose of the bus service improvement grant, this is to deliver against our enhanced partnership plan, which has been agreed between bus operators and RBWM. This decision and setting out that plan has already been made in an earlier executive decision. Just to summarise some of the things that the grant is earmarked to fund, this will be new bus stops where bus routes have been recently changed, works to highways where there's new bus routes with manoeuvres that are difficult for buses to make, given the existing conditions of those junctions, for example. A programme called All Aboard, which is upgrading existing bus stops to be more widely accessible to the public and particular groups of users. Next stop screens and contactless payment upgrades on board the buses, and upgrades and expansion to live bus departure screens and bus stops. So this is all great. These are all really important things. The principles have already been agreed, and to enter into this partnership, this is purely appropriating the funds so they can be used. And I know from personal experience in Boyne Hill, we can't move a particular bus stop until this is set up, because the cost centre is blocked. So it does make an operational difference, and it's a good thing that our financial governance arrangements are such that we are following the rules correctly. So the funding sources, I've already said, the town hall works will be entirely funded from the capital receipt from the Reform Road sale. In fact, the deposit that we will receive will more than cover the cost of the works. The bus improvement projects, as I said, are from a dedicated Department for Transport capital grant, so no cost to the borough. Consequences for not approving these this evening, I think it will really risk, in terms of the Reform Road element of it, the sale of that site and the associated significant capital receipts that will be arising from that disposal. And likely with the bus grant, we would have to return it to central government and lose out on all those new and helpful improvements to our borough services. In terms of delivery, there's a cross-departmental Reform Road delivery group, which is overseeing the implementation, all parts of that, not just the disposal, but the relatively complex transfer of services off the sites. and looking at things like procurement, risk management, and other elements. And as always, there's the Capital Review Board, which always keeps a close eye on all project expenditure, and that's probably going back to the point that I would be extremely surprised if we had to use the full allocation for the town hall relocation, and I know that board will be keeping an eye on the cash. So I commend these updates to our capital budgets to the full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Hill. Right, I'm going to open it for debate now. Councillor Price, you got your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm concerned about the equality impact assessment because it doesn't tackle the budget, the bus improvement. It only looks at the Reform Road. And it's saying, well, we looked at this 3 years ago, so yes, it does affect it, but actually you've got to go and look it up, or I've got to go and look it up in the cabinet paper of some time ago. So I would expect to make it easier for us if that was attached, it would be relevant. But I think there are different sets of circumstances now to when this was approved at cabinet. So I'd just say, I don't think this is really up to scratch. It's not going to stop me voting for it, but I don't think this has been well done.
Councillor Taylor? Okay, thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Werner, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm sure you've all seen the increase in the number of buses going around the borough, many of them in Royal Borough purple. We've been working really hard to negotiate with the bus operators to improve services across the borough, and we are really keen to carry on improving them. For instance, the bus service operating across North Maidenhead was reduced by the previous administration to an hourly service. We've managed to negotiate them to bring it back to a half-hourly service again. If you're a bus user, you'll know that an hourly service doesn't really fit the bill at all. Half-hourly service is usable. My father stopped using the bus when it became an hourly service because if he missed it by a minute, he would be left standing there for an hour. Whereas a half-hour service, if he was still around, would be absolutely perfect for him. So if you've got further improvements you want to bus services, do talk to Jeff sitting over there. He is very obliging and will immediately get to work with the bus companies to see whether anything further can be negotiated. As you all know, I'm sure, bus services are cost-effective, efficient, accessible form of transport, connecting people to jobs, education, healthcare, recreation, and just stop that whole loneliness thing of being stuck in your house on your own. They're vital for our area. They reduce traffic congestion by carrying more passengers, support social inclusion, and a flexible, adaptable mode of transport. They are fab. Buses are fab. So this is about the next part of the plan, paid for by the government grants, so no cost to the borough taxpayer, but is infrastructure that we really need to accompany the new bus routes. So as I said, very pro buses. I hope you all are. And Jeff's ready to hear your suggestions for further improvements. Sorry, Jeff.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Coe, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really speaking in support of the bus investment, and I'll be talking to you later, Jeff, about a bench on Ray Park Road that one of my residents wants so that she doesn't fall over waiting for the bus.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Councillor Wisdom da Costa, please. Thank you.
I'm absolutely thrilled by the leaders' enthusiasm for buses, especially as Councillor Davies will also point out that by switching to buses, we're going to reduce our carbon footprint, improve our well-being, our health, reduce pollution. So thank you again for pointing me to Councillor Hill. The Willows residents and I will be calling for a meeting with you shortly, sir.
Thank you, Councillor da Costa. Councillor Walters, please.
Have you restored the number 16 bus to Hollyport? It used to come into Hollyport, down the Hollyport Road, to take a lot of the old people on the Stroud Farm Road estate, I just wonder whether that was one of the lucky ones, number 16.
Councillor Walter, this is not specific to the bus changes. This is a capital sort of programme report. It's a capital programme report.
Well, surely there's a question.
It's
We're
not
talking about
relevant
buses,
to, obviously, the bus timetable. But if you want to ask,
Speaks to Jeff after the meeting.
thank you, Councillor Walters. Councillor Hunt, please, thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, I'm very pleased about the bus service. It's great news all round. Regarding the 0.84, well, £840,000 for the town hall. Now, I read somewhere that there was going to be a door put in into Park Road on this. And I wondered, there's already a door. So why is that? And what constitutes £840,000? Because we've got officers all over the place. We've got third floor officers. But thank you, I'd like to know.
Councillor Hunt. Councillor Jones, please, thank you.
Yeah, I support this. I know that the 840 is before we go out to tender, it includes a big contingency. So I'm happy with the figures to be in a budget line. Regarding the buses, we need to improve the areas where our buses stop. There are some bus stops that just aren't there anymore, that need putting back in, that have been knocked down. And I will be talking to the transport team around the bus from the Crown Estate, as asked by the leader, because no one wants to tender for it at the moment, but we will certainly try to get that up and running. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor De Costa, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really am pleased to see some of the improvements that have come out of the new bus services. I've had residents come and tell me that they're able to go to Wexham Park Hospital without lots of changes, and that they are now able to go to Maidenhead, which was more difficult in the past. We have lost some services where there are more vulnerable people living, and I will be taking that to Councillor Hill. One of the comments I'd like to make is that the buses are used by our most vulnerable within our communities, and also by the people who have the least disposable income. And they don't always have a voice in our community. And I really am very, very happy to support anything that helps people within our communities that need to have their voice heard and enable them to live happy, healthy lives, as we have as one of our key values as a borough. So I look forward to having a chat with you, Councillor Hill, and appreciative of some of the improvements we've seen, and looking forward to seeing even more improvements ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carol De Costa. Councillor Reeves, please. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to make a point around the Reform Road, the move and the costs associated with the drug and alcohol group move. I think this is such an important thing that we should continue to support. The people that use this service are hugely vulnerable, and it's a very sensitive user group. And actually having their own entrance that is ring-fenced away from the other users of the town hall, this makes absolute sense where we've decided to put it. It has its own existing doorway. It is also referred to as an underutilized and underused area of the town hall. So it makes absolute sense. And I'm sure, as we've heard, that the costing is to be able to actually give us a high level contingency. But as we've heard previously earlier on in this meeting, there are huge advances since we've come into this administration around better procurement, better contract management, and I'm sure, let's not say sure. I'm hopeful that that cost will not be realised at such a high level, and that we can actually deliver such a hugely valuable service, or continue, I should say, that a hugely valuable service to these people that are in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I too have heard from residents regarding issues around bus stops across the spread of Windsor, and also timings, in particular to those properties towards the Great Park. So I would also like to request a meeting with Councillor Hill just to run through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Julian Sharp. Thank you.
To me, when there is a lot of empty office space in all of our areas, that we are spending £840,000, even if there is a contingency on modifying existing offices, we surely can find better use for our residents' money than actually spending it modifying existing offices that already exist. And we should be able to move into something which is ready-made and suitable for them, that is actually already there. It seems like a dreadful waste of money, all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. I just want to make a comment on the bus service. Never seen better bus service in Cookham. We never used to see a bus, but now in the morning when I'm walking, I see 2 or 3. Just a comment. Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Councillor Walters speaking about a bus in his area, and then you've gone ahead specifically yourself and talked about a bus in your area. Is that right?
Okay, Councillor Walters' comment was on a Pacific bus route. I'm just making a comment. But the bus service you're talking about is, Route 16, bus service 16 does exist. It goes through Hollyport. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Right, okay. Councillor Coronan, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to quickly ask if what the effect is on any community groups who currently use the rooms that will be being affected. Is there any effect to the community who already use the spaces that are being changed?
Thank you, Councillor Coronan. Right. Could I ask the seconder to Councillor Hill? Please wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I was going to comment on something on buses and bus stops, but it's all been done. So thank you very much for the compliments that I've received around the room. I'm just going to say I'm going to vote for this because I think it's a very worthwhile paper, and the upgrades that we're going to receive to the bus service in terms of the shelters and the infrastructure are very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Bermange, would you like to wrap it up, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for contributions to the debate. I'll start just by looking at specific questions relating to the relocation and capital works planned for the town hall. Councillor Hunt questioned whether we need to install a door in Park Street when there already is a door. Well, I think there's a slight misunderstanding here. I mean, of course, we'll be using the existing door. The idea is that it will be a self-contained service, and therefore this will then become an exclusive entrance for this service from Park Street. So this is for those trying to orientate themselves. You've got obviously the Job Centre Plus to the left of the service yard, and this door would be to the right of the service yard. But yeah, we're not spending £840,000 on a really nice door. We're not even going to spend. I'm sure we're not going to spend £840,000 on the whole project. I'm really positive that that's not going to be the case, but we need that contingency just in the budget line. Councillor Conran asked a good question about current uses and impact. What I would say is the Desborough Theatre space itself is not going to be impacted at all by these changes. That is the primary use of for community groups who have used the town hall services. We've had some great innovations recently, I know, in terms of sort of lunchtime keep fit type things. I think Councillor Werner was debating whether to join the Zumba class next week, but I dissuaded him. No, please go to if you. I agree also, with the comments obviously made about the importance of protecting our most vulnerable in the community who tend disproportionately rely on bus services, and that's why part of these capital works that have already been agreed in principle will make these bus services more accessible to all. So I think that will help the vulnerable as much as possible. Perhaps then it's slightly contradictory with what I'm about to say about Councillor Price's comment, but I know I know Councillor Price often has frustrations with the way the EQIAs are formatted. What I would say in this case, and going back to the actual point of what we're deciding this evening, because this is purely a decision about the appropriation of capital funds to help fund projects which have already been agreed through earlier decisions, it's important that whatever a quality impact assessment is provided, helps members fulfil their public sector equality duties specifically on the point in question. I know Madam Mayor's maybe embellished some of the debate this evening and talk about the brilliant and great bus services, etc. But ultimately, what we're actually being asked to decide on is purely a question of do we want to appropriate these funds so they can be used for those previously made decisions or not? And that is essentially the limit to the question. So to have certainly do go back and look at how those quality impact assessments were done on the actual underlying decisions relating to the services and the projects. But for tonight, I do understand why the impact assessment is presented in the format it is. I think I'll leave it there, but I think thank you again, everyone, for your comments.
Thank you, Councillor Bermange. Now, okay, the papers are set out in your agenda and on the screen. Can this be agreed anonymously?
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. Right, agenda item 12 is a follow-up report on the statement of licensing policy 5 year review that went to our previous council meeting. This item, just to note, is not open to debate. Councillor Coe, could you please explain?
Paragraph 8.3, the one that got away. So when the policy went through the licensing panel, it was complete and proper, but it was observed subsequent to our last council meeting that the paper that came through council was missing paragraph 8.3. I'll read paragraph 8.3 so you know that it's not particularly egregious. So it adds to the policy, particular attention must be given to the prevention of noise nuisance at outdoor events and the effects that such noise can have on local residents at any time of day. This was subsequently noted by officers and also by Mr. Streletsky, who spoke at the last council, that this particular paragraph had gone astray. So by noting the report, we are effectively reinstating it to the report we passed at the last council. I think that's right. Elaine, have I got that correct?
Councillor Coe. Now, okay. It's just noted. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you everyone attending. I now declare the meeting closed. Can I confirm that the meeting is no longer broadcasted?